The opportunity. I'm happy to take a short call on the part 2 of the legislation, Local Government Auckland Transitional Provisions Act 2010. My colleague Marion Street identified that the theme that seems to be emanating in our debate on part 2 here, sir, is the need to protect local democracy and also the need for central government or this government to recognise that local government has a significant role to play, that local government does have a viable role to play in the development of our communities. I think, sir, when talking about part 2, it's fair that we need to reflect about how Auckland came to be as a super city. It was this government imposing upon Auckland a structure that many Aucklanders did not feel comfortable with. It was rushed at the time, and it was designed, sir, by, according to many in the communities, it's designed really to flock off the assets that the Auckland community has. Flog off. And so, fair to say that the community rejected the proposal by this government and elected Len Brown as mayor. And so I think it is important to acknowledge the significant work that the mayor and the Auckland Council, including the CEO, have had to go through and undergo, particularly when you consider the bringing together of 8 local territorial authorities, significant units in themselves, and trying to make that work despite the difficult situation that they were in. I highlight the 2 themes, sir, the need to protect local democracy and the need to recognise local government as a significant and viable partner in the development of our community, because in listening to the Minister's response, that gives away the focus of this particular government. They don't want at all to recognise that communities have a right to make their local decisions. And I think, sir, when we're recognising the importance of local government as viable partners of development, I would ask the Minister whether she would be prepared to respond with regard to the submission made by Local Government New Zealand, whether any of the recommendations that were put to her by the submission of Local Government New Zealand, whether she considered that and whether any of those submissions were included in part 2. In their submission, Local Government New Zealand highlighted that the key matters with reference to part 2, section 122, were the moratorium on variations under the proposed section 121, the hearings panel not being limited to making recommendations within the scope of submissions under proposed section 139, the weight the hearing panel must give to the Auckland Plan when recommendations under proposed section 140, and what rules in the Auckland Combined Plan will have immediate legal effect under proposal section 147, and the related questions of what weight the plan is to have on and from notification, and the members of the hearing panel under proposed section 155. Those are what the Local Government New Zealand in their submission highlighted, sir, as key factors pertaining to part 2. And I would ask the Minister whether she would be prepared to respond when whether any of those recommendations were considered in her papers to Cabinet, and whether any of those recommendations have been implemented as part of the amendments to the RMA. With section 121, the restrictions on amendment or variation to Auckland Combined Plan. Oh, sorry. Yep. And I suppose what I'm referring to, sir, is that it is the 3-year the 3-year notification that has been given to Auckland. While that's accepted by the Auckland Council, I understand, the moratorium removes the tool, which means that Auckland Council is unable to address the material information or change in circumstances that arise after the plan is notified. Let me go to 139 then, given that that's part 2.
Sir Williams here. Are you taking the call, or is it?
Are we going on? Carry on. 139. Section 139, the submission of the Auckland Local Government New Zealand says, these sections provide that the hearings panel is not limited to making recommendations within the scope of submissions, and that Auckland Council may accept such recommendations. This is a significant departure from the existing law, as in clause 10 bar 1 of Schedule 1 requires that a consent authority give a decision on the provisions and matters raised in submissions. There is established case law on this specific provision. So that's a significant matter that the Local Government New Zealand is recommending. And their recommendation is to delete sections 139 bar 2 and section 143 bar 3. Again, I'd ask whether the Minister considered any of the recommendations made by Local Government New Zealand in the papers. My colleague Eugenie Seiji makes recommendations, has a supplementary order paper about the makeup of the hearings panel. I think that's a significant departure. Well, no. This is an example. If the government refuses to accept the recommendation made by Local Government New Zealand, which says that ministers and the Auckland Council jointly establish the hearings panel, that in itself sends a message that this government, despite what they might say about partnership, continues to refuse to recognise that the local council, Auckland Council in this case, has a significant role to play, that they have a right to be able to be part of this decision making. Okay? I wasn't sure whether I was going to keep that short or not. Anyway, what we're saying, sir, is that Auckland Council, the government and the council should partner with, in appointing the hearings panel. So I've heard often that this government talks about partnering with local government, but from what I've heard the Minister say tonight, and if she is saying that none of the recommendations made by Local Government New Zealand have been adopted, that none of the recommendations by Local Government New Zealand have been considered or included in any of the papers that she's tabled to Cabinet, then that sends a very powerful message indeed, sir, that they're only talking about partnership, but in reality, the theme of this is they're going to gut local government. They aim to not recognise at all that local government is a viable partner in development in our communities.
I call Raymond Ho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part 2, Local Government Auckland Transitional Provisions Act includes a number of provisions